Thank you for joining us on Screen Watching. Mate, you're a man who runs in artistic circles. When you were approached about the project, where was Eugene Smith placed in US history by your estimation?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I would suspect that he was at this point, many years after his passing, not as at top of mind as he should have been, frankly. I think among a certain community, both people that came of age at a time when Life magazine was your main source, and also of artists and news folks and photographers. Of course, he's somebody that is on the highest of levels. I've been a fan of Eugene Smith's work since, I was probably a little boy, and I remember being struck by some of the imagery and the amount of information that was in it. You often see in quote unquote important images and images that are about something, images that teach you something. And they're often not that beautiful. They often don't reflect back that sort of best part of humanity, the love and compassion and spirit of community. But somehow Gene Smith was able to imbibe his work with that and capture the human spirit. And so his work, even as a young boy, I remember not understanding it, but always being attracted to the work. And or I should say young artist, probably not that young of a boy, but now I'm older, so it feels young. But the idea that you would look at an image and you would lean forward to see it as opposed to turning away. Images from war, images from around the world, and the MINAMATA images in particular, I always found incredibly inspiring.
I'm going to tell you a very quick story. This is your interview, not mine, but I will tell you very quickly. When the scene come up, when you shoot Tomoko in her bath, I was all of a sudden torn out of my reality and back to when I was maybe a 9 or 10-year-old. And I remember that photo, not knowing it was a Eugene Smith photo, not knowing it had even come from Life magazine, but just the moment when I turned the page in what was probably a photography book or even a newspaper maybe, and saw that image. And I realized I was watching a film about this moment in my life that was just profoundly impactful on me. So it was an extraordinary sort of moment of clarity for me.
Oh, I'm so glad. I hope that, I hope that the film can have the sort of impact today, especially for younger generations, that are so bombarded with imagery and videos and content. But I hope the film can have the kind of impact today that the image did, 50 years ago. Sure. Those images did, and just remind us, remind us that we're all in it together. Remind us that there's a collective consciousness and an ability for everybody to stand together. It's an interesting moment in time, obviously, with COVID and the fact that the world is really dealing with something, globally at the same time. Of course, you guys have been incredible down there, and how you guys have been able to manage everything. But it's this idea that there are no borders, and we all are in it together, and and every issue about life and industrial pollution and health and wellness and all this stuff. It's if we can all stand up and be together. It sounds sort of hokey, doesn't it? But it's actually true. It's like we have that power, and I think essential opportunities and essential kind of necessities and government obligations are being neglected.
This is clearly something that you conveyed to Mr. Depp, because in his performance of a very flawed man at a very almost tragic point in Eugene Smith's life, Johnny Depp finds this extraordinary sense of hope and catharsism and change through his experience in Minamata. Tell me about creating with Johnny this version of Eugene Smith.
Sure. Well, working with Johnny was an absolute treat. I mean, he's such a unique artist. And as we were talking about Gene and talking about the work, and I was quite fortunate that I had Eileen Smith, the real Eileen Smith, to work with and help me learn more. And I was almost like her therapist or something, because she revealed everything to me. She was so brave and just told me every dark secret, every dark corner of experience, which allowed me to have great insight. Not to necessarily advertise it all or put it all out there for the world to see, but at least help in building characters and working with the actors. And with Johnny, I think he's one of the very few artists that are out there that you can't shake the charm and hope that he personally carries. You can make him anything, that's why I think audiences relate to him so much and react so well, is because even when he's the worst type of guy, which he isn't in this film, but even when he is, you can't get past, like, he just can't hide that hopefulness and that joyfulness and that love and compassion that he carries in his eyes. And so for a character like this, we really could show a place that this man had been in after being in being in war and seeing horrible things, but then still carrying that torch. And Johnny had that naturally. And so we worked together for many months, trying to just get the tone exactly right and get the character exactly right, and then put Johnny in out into the world to go express it. And I think one of the great gifts in a film like this is because we were able to see the film. Ultimately, this film is about not Eugene Smith. It's not a biopic. It's a story about this Japanese fishing village and this community that rose up and found their voices and spoke truth to power and did something special and something inspiring. But because we have the Eugene Smith character as our way in, and in particular Johnny, who's able to emote and give us that window in, we were able to create a film that's quite, I think, visually enjoyable, both in terms of the performances. I know, because of COVID, there's been enough time since we've made the film now. I finished the movie over a year ago. I recently watched it, and I found myself actually really just enjoying watching Johnny work and watching Johnny, channel this character. And then, of course, visually, we worked quite hard to make it something that you really, your eyes would dance around the screen and enjoy what you're seeing.
Yeah, I want to touch on those two aspects coming together. Arguably, Johnny's best bit of acting in the last decade or so is the scene where the door's drawn back and he sees Tomoko in the bathtub, and you hold his face for a long time, and he's covered in bandages. But you see, in that instant, his pain disappear. All the pain he suffered because of the beating is gone, and he is seeing the incredible struggle that Tomoko's having in the bathtub. And then you cut to this extraordinarily beautiful bit of framing. You and Benoit Delhomme, the DOP, captured that moment. And I understood, maybe through your eyes, through an artist's eyes like yourself, what it took and what sort of inspiration came from that very moment. It's an extraordinary bit of filmmaking.
Oh, well, thank you. It was an amazing day and a tall task to recreate, the poignancy and the beauty of that image on one side. That alone would have been enough for us to try to tackle. But you're right. On the other side of that scene is Johnny or Gene, having that moment, that transformative moment. And it was quite a day shooting that. And actually, we were all, myself and Benoit and the whole crew. I mean, we were all quite struck actually ourselves and emotional when we shot that. Not in terms of like a sense of achievement, but actually just deeply touched by. I think we ourselves were transported back to that room when Jean would have been photographing Tomoko and her mother and Eileen, you know, and we understood what that felt like in some way, both, and it's quite complex, right? Because as artists ourselves and as Jean, there is a moment of elation when you make something special, when you capture something that, you know, might not have ever happened, might not have ever been capturable, whether we're creating it on a set or it's happening in real life at the time. So there's that elation. And then there's actually the awareness of all of that hope and love and compassion and all of that beauty that's there as well, which is quite striking. And then of course it's tinged with, you know, how horrible. Oh, my son just showed up. My 3-year-old just showed up to the door here. Xander, go back to mommy.
That's okay. Take your
Sorry.
time.
And you know, and it's tinged with that horror of what we all do, and it's such a complex moment, but one that I hope that viewers, I hope that we've earned the time with our viewers, that when they get to that moment in the film, not only do they lean forward because they're so engaged with it and they want to see, but also that there's the space in their minds to just bathe in the feelings and be open enough that they can really live in it. And that's why we took that time. I mean, that I felt like the movie is, I hope, quite, you know, fast paced, or at least moves quite well until we get to that moment. And that's where I wanted to spend all of our kind of extra time, you know, so you could sit and watch this masterful actor live in a moment that is so complex and amazing, but also should mirror what we're all doing in the audience, right? We should all be having that same moment.
Yeah.
So
have you screened it for the Minamata survivors?
We have, and just to correct you, still victims, still patients,
yes,
still people fighting, and we have screened it for them. You know, the patients, the current patients, and their and the families of those who passed on over the years have been incredibly supportive of this film. And one of the most, in fact, I think the most remarkable part of my whole story in working on this was going to Minamata, you know, before making the film, and sitting down with as many families as I could, and almost to the man or woman, the takeaway of every conversation was, don't do this for us. Do this so that there are no more Minamatas. And what they really meant by it was, mistakes happen, bad things happen. But the issue here is that people didn't confront it right away. They didn't step up and say, okay, there's a problem. Let's be honest and truthful. More people were hurt. More people died. More bad things happened because, you know, the Japanese government and this corporation didn't step up and do something about it. And it was incredibly, you know, they weren't concerned about their legacy. They were concerned about helping other people. It's a remarkable thing. And I think therein lies their actual legacy. And I think to that end, you know, and so then I should just say, so then, you know, they've been sort of partners throughout, and we did screen the film for them, and or for many of them, and you know, and they were quite happy and taken and struck by it all, and also, you know, part of why I think the Minamata story is so worth telling, or worth is the wrong word, but so such a good one to tell as a film, is, again, because you can make a movie about a subject like this through the lens of someone like Smith, whose images are so gorgeous, whose images are so inspiring. You can kind of create this like nutritious content, nutritious film that as an audience, you can both enjoy and kind of learn from and be inspired by, but really see pictures that are beautiful. I can't express it enough. Like, Gene's work is stunning. You know, it's the sort of thing that somehow, you know, if another photographer would have taken a picture of, and obviously this isn't part of the film, but would have taken a picture of a GI in the war pulling a baby out of the rubble, you would have been like, that's the most horrific thing I've ever seen. I need to turn away. But somehow the look on the GI's face and the twinkle in his eye and the way he's holding the baby and the way that Gene Smith captures that, you look at it and go, that's a gorgeous photo. That's a gorgeous image. Wow, how inspiring. And that's, you know, that's what we hoped to do in the film here. And I think the victims themselves are incredibly inspiring, and their families are. And I think and hope that and I know that they feel that we made a film that mirrored that.
I think so as well. I think you've made an extraordinary film, Andrew Levitas. Thank you so much for joining us on the Screen Watching podcast. The movie MINAMATA is in Australian cinemas from June 3, and it's got the Screen Watching stamp of approval. It's a beautiful film. Thank you, mate.
Thank you so much. Stay well.
Take care.